Last week, we looked at self-parenting and a number of ways that we might do that. We had some inquiry around that. And this week, we're going to continue and kind of deepen that and also share a little bit about what came up last week. So this is the last week that we're working with Gabor Mate's book, Scattered Minds. And to some extent, When the Body Says No as well, The Cost of Hidden Stress. I really appreciate his approach. He has a very deep understanding of the nervous system and how it works, and he combines that with compassionate curiosity, which is a great pairing. Last week, we looked at these pillars of body, psychological, and spiritual from a lens of how can we support ourselves in stabilizing these foundations. And the reason that I think it's important to work with these is because it has such an effect on our daily life, for one thing. But also, when we're not kind of doing what makes sense to us, like if we're staying up really late and we're having trouble sleeping, if we find that we're eating a lot late at night but not very nutritious food, we're having a hard time getting off the couch and getting out for a walk or doing some kind of exercise. Those things are generally not because we're trying to sabotage ourselves, but because there's something going on in our nervous system. And a lot of that relates to hypervigilance from earlier in our life. So the other ones are nature, just to be able to get outside, and extracurricular activities, and he calls them duties because sometimes we get too busy with them. So we want to have that sweet spot of extracurricular and recreation, but not too much. And creative expression is part of that. And some of it is art or music or things like that that we might think of as creative expression. And also, it's that longing we have to find meaning and purpose in life. I find a lot of creative expression through my work. And then meditation and mindfulness, which is a real cornerstone of what it is that we do here. Connecting ourselves and also with others and with all. So that's just kind of a quick touching back into, in case you missed last week or just as a refresher. But most of the time here, we're going to spend doing some inquiry again. So if you were here or if you've done this before, then we might be very familiar with ourselves at certain ages. And it can be a really deep practice to work with ourselves at different ages. So working with our younger self as a 3-year-old, as a 10-year-old, as a teen, younger adult, at different times during our life. And if you brought a picture, you probably brought a picture of yourself at an age that has some kind of meaning, that has some kind of resonance for you. So if we were to think back to that issue from the previous list, what is something that you might be able now as an adult to help your younger self with? We think about sleep and the anxiety many people feel. The thoughts are racing, they feel anxious. Maybe their nervous system was conditioned when they were young, that it wasn't safe to sleep. So we have these habits that carry through into our adult life. Maybe if you were in a state of freeze a lot of the time, you just kind of don't go outside. You have kind of a dull, passive feeling in your mind and in your body. Let's look at this for a bit, and we're going to use our senses again. So as you're looking at that picture, either that you have a picture that you're looking at or a mental image of yourself at a certain age, and take a moment to really look. What can you tell about yourself by looking at that picture? Now, what memories come up? When I look at that picture of me, I was about 10 and I had bare feet. And I remember how from about May until school started, I tried to never wear my shoes at all. And that was one of the things that I just kind of really enjoyed at that age. So as you're looking at that image of yourself as a child, notice what are the memories that come up. What was your life like at that age? As you're doing this, the key, of course, is to stay present in this moment. So notice your body, notice your breath. If you're closing your eyes, you might want to open them again. orient to the room that you're in, to this present moment. What we're doing is an inquiry. We're looking at a picture or a mental image. And what would they want you to know? For so many of us, we just felt like nobody really knew who we were. Nobody was paying attention, unless it was maybe to hurt us. But if you had a sympathetic ear and someone who really wanted to know what's going on with you, at that age, what might you have wanted them to know? Use your vision. Do you remember what your house looked like at the time, where you would sit with them? Would it be outside, maybe in the yard? Would it be on their bed? You could sit beside them there. Where would it be? After school, in a park, maybe? Where would you sit and talk with them? And then let yourself kind of arrive there with your senses. What were the sounds, the smells, touch? And if you were just to hang out with them, no particular goal in mind, just wanting to get to know them and wanting them to get to know you, that they're not alone, that there's an adult here now, even if that feels a bit shaky at times. And sometimes we have a hard time connecting. And if we don't have a hard time, if you're right into that, just kind of let my voice move to the background. If you're having a hard time connecting, it might help to get more specific. So, a specific age, a specific location. And if you have a memory from that time of something that happened, it might have been a big T trauma event, or it might have been one of those things where it just happened a lot. You came home from school and nobody even noticed that you were there. Or it's like, hi, how was your day? But they didn't even turn away from the screen. So you could use a common chronic experience, or you could use something big that day and let your memories come. What was it like that day? If you got bad news, did somebody come and tell you? And who was that? Or if you were bullied out behind the school at recess, what was the person's name? What did their face look like? What was the experience? When we get really specific and then we just let that be, we just kind of sit with that. That can be one way to connect. And if you could imagine sitting with that younger self, maybe they would want to tell you about how they feel. Maybe you could suggest some way to get the conversation going. It must have been scary when that happened. If you want to tell me more about it, I'm here, I'm listening. How did you feel when that happened? So you can work with this as an imagined conversation, or you could just work with it as kind of a being attentive to the memory of that. What were some of those feelings that came up? What were some of your thoughts? And stay connected to your body and your breath, to this moment in time. You're not back there, actually. If it comes a bit too intense, you could tap on your forehead. You could hold your own hand. You could open your eyes, look around the room, reconnect to cues of safety. You could also bring in things that that child at that age would not have known. Most children take the blame on, well, if I hadn't said that thing, or if I was smarter, or if I wasn't so annoying. People, especially as children, tend to take on the blame because the priority is to keep their connection with the adults that are around them. And so, as you're doing that, you might want to say to them, what happened to you was not your fault. It's the responsibility of your parents to provide a safe environment for you and also to let you know they want to know you, that they love you, they care about you, and they care about your experience. It's up to parents to regulate their own nervous system so that they can be present for you and help you with your feelings and help you to process these things that happen. And that's not always the case. Sometimes that's not something they can do. So sometimes when you blame yourself for something, it's helpful to know a little bit more about how that works. What happened to you as a child was not your fault. And as an adult now, and as a parent perhaps as well, we could not move into shame or blame. We could have that more balanced approach. Lots of times we can really understand why things happen the way they did in our childhood from our adult perspective. And we can have compassion and room for people to be doing their best and for that not to have been exactly what we needed. And right now, we're working with that child, with that younger self, who just needs to know that they're lovable, that you care about what happened to them, and that it wasn't their fault. And when we attune with our younger self in this way, they really get that felt sense that they're not alone anymore and they can come forward. It's safe for them to come forward and let us know who they are, to comfort them. So take a few deep breaths and let that kind of settle a little bit. And then bring forward one of those areas where perhaps you could help them. So we're kind of helping ourselves now and supporting that younger self that might be driving some behavior that's not ideal. So if we go back to a physical space, a chaotic physical space, kind of disorganize us or make us feel kind of overwhelmed. So this isn't a should, especially if you have ADD or ADHD, you're more sensitive to your environment. And so a good, clean, spare physical space could help with that. So maybe that's something that you could kind of set as a practice. Or it might be sleep, helping your younger self feel safe enough to sleep. Maybe it's just to acknowledge that there is an anxiety there, a fear of being alone with one's mind. Or if you eat like a 10-year-old kid whose parents are away, maybe you could bring some awareness into that. So there's all of these different areas. So just pick one and then see what comes to mind as something that you could do to support yourself. Physical exercise, relaxation, being in nature, and then all of those recreational and creative activities. And then meditation and mindfulness. What might you work with right now? And then as you're working with that, bring to mind, what is the connection with yourself at that younger age? Why is it that you're reluctant to sleep or that you don't go outside and exercise? What is it about your experience as a child that might be still affecting that? And then really kind of think about a plan, a commitment to yourself. What might you do that would help? And then when you come up with one of them, take some time with that. Really feel into, this is something I'd like to do. This is something I know would be good for me. And then I'm willing to put some effort into, and I have the circumstances that I could do that. And then notice how your younger self feels about that. Are they putting the brakes on in some way? How could you support your younger self in coming along with this? And sometimes you might be a bit hard on yourself. Maybe you're shaming yourself for having a messy room or for not getting out as much as you'd like to exercise. So if you're doing that, see if you could not, see if you could back away from that a bit. What we're really looking into is what it is that puts on the brakes and how that relates to our childhood. So staying up late related to a fear of being alone with our mind makes a lot of sense. We might still be very hypervigilant and have a very active mind. And if so, what could we do with that? How could we support ourselves? Stay aware of your body, your breath, your eyes open if that helps. You could write it down or make a mental note. What might that look like? Like, really bring it vividly to mind. And it might be that you started eating junk food when you were at that age or around that age, and now you're looking at these habits. So maybe you were eating for comfort, and really that's a pretty good solution when you're a child. There's often not a lot available to us, but food often is. And what could you do now to help that? Like, one of the things could be, do I really need comfort like that anymore? What are my other options? And you might be bringing in meditation or mindfulness. So instead of following that urge to eat junk food at night, maybe I'll switch up my routine a bit. Or maybe I'll get a soft pillow and blanket and kind of cuddle with myself for a little while and then see what I feel like eating in 10 minutes. So there's lots of different ways. So let yourself be kind of creative. Just kind of let yourself wander around a little bit around this until you find something. Yeah, I could do that one. And then let that kind of come to a rest. And then look back at that picture of yourself again, either the physical picture or the mental image, and make it as a commitment. Set an intention and make a commitment to yourself at your younger self age. This week or this month, but starting today, this is what I'm going to commit to do, whatever that is for you. Look them in the eyes and feel that energy of them. I know that we have this history of doing something this way, and this is what I'm going to commit to now. We'll do this instead. This is how I can support you in feeling safe enough to let go of that old thing that you used to do and you don't have to do anymore.